Yeah. Sorry. Same.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Dr. Balin, would you like to send the
United States to the republic, one nation, God.
Okay, public forum. We'd like to welcome the members of the public who have taken the time to attend this meeting and provide comments on matters related to district business. Any member of the public may address the board relating to any matter within the board's jurisdiction. This need not be related to any item on the agenda. However, the board cannot act unless it was put aside. Person speaking during public comment will be limited to 5 minutes, or depending on the number of persons wishing to speak, it may be reduced to allow all members of the public. Is there anybody in attendance who would like to address the board? How about online, Corey?
Not the moment.
Okay, we'll move on to our consent calendar. So,
Okay, item number 1, minutes of the regular board meeting of March 14th, 2023. Item number 2, consider adopting Cal OES designation of applicant agent resolution, non-state agency. And item number 3, reject claim damages, claim 3-01, Waxton.
Director, pull any of the items on the consent.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Opposed?
Okay, regular business. Item number 4, update on district operations, February.
Oh. That time. Did a lot. Just about every person. Which helps. They were shoveling up the kitchen.
You know, what's amazing is through all of that effort that none of the plants ran out of water. I don't know how in the world they did that.
So we did get lucky. We were having some run. Little bit of water was making it under the snow, through the ditches, surviving in places. There are places we pumps set up. We had generators set up to pumps out of the pond. We were pumping from a creek to a pond. We were doing anything that we could do. We saw water get it to the. Yes.
Same. Was it necessary to some of the agreements for, say, that they busy?
They were busy too. We did, Dawn had some communications with them. So we needed it. It's gonna be more for next month's this month's ops report did help sound out. We never brought anybody else in the other districts.
I did put on the turned out Eric made some phone calls with Delta Cruise
So with that, they were struggling getting to places. Because there was so much snow. A lot of the roads were down to trees were down, power lines were down. Take different roads. Reaction times getting there were slow. It's just what they had to deal with. They were doing the best they could do to work on the ditch, plow roads, get fuel, get equipment. We kind of covered the water treatment, like I said, generators were sets, and we were setting pumps and different like that. And the treatment operators were doing a great job. They had their hands, so they were having to carry 5-gallon gas cans into places because they didn't plow close enough. Everything else was busy. That was a struggle. Distribution, those guys, go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, I had a question. I don't know whether I'm jumping ahead of you or not, but I was looking at the water operations report, February 2023. And this is surface water plants and production total in million gallons. And what I saw that was kind of strange to me, and I was hoping, well, I'm going to throw out what I think is the cause. Every one of the plants was lower production. And I would imagine that would be because of how much water we've gotten, but there's 2 of them that were above last year. And I'm wondering, was that because of the main line breaks?
Some of it was, due to some of the leaks that we had, because we definitely had some leaks out there that we couldn't find under snow. Pop up later.
Like Cedar Ridge is
That's
considerably higher, but I know we had a big break up there.
Yeah, so we're still finding damage. They're up fixing a hydrant today that was just found that it was damaged during.
Okay, thank you for that.
So the distribution guys, they were able to kind of keep somewhat of a normal route, doing town tags, getting some small projects done, but they were being grabbed there and out looking for leaks and people running all. Construction maintenance, before the weather got bad, they were able to do some of the scheduled projects, replacement for the 16-inch control valve down at big project. The coordination had to go on there to get the alpha line dry. It's good. It'll be a big help.
Question on that. What type of valve was installed out there?
So it's going to be, it is a clay valve. It's installed. It's not going to be used until the can't come. So we're using a pass.
That a clay valve, is that like a globe valve or a gate valve?
It's a
So it's a globe valve type with a.
See, on the wastewater side, they were having their own struggles too, running around filling generators with outages. This is kind of inundated with water. Had some extra work to some of the sumps in the places for flowing. And again, air crews were grabbed. Everybody was busy. Everybody was tired. They worked a lot of hours. They made it.
Back to the water page, 8, for distribution CIP. Checks, I have a question. The Mill Villa well replacement project progress, it says, is that a,
Yes.
okay, so once we get a CIP, or is it always on the CIP? You don't budget side. It's a group. Okay.
So I'd say
budget for the CIP adoption. All the crews work together to come up with the CIP plan. We're really looking what we need for those projects. Typically, the grants already have them in hand. Is there a matching portion involved in the grant that could get them on the list? We do track all the costs, so the CIP report I gave you includes those that are grant funded, other ones that aren't. So some of the specific, so it's on this year's CIP tracking. As we would get a grant, if something new came along that was a CIP project, not involved in cost share matching, added.
Question also on that, Melville well, looking at the, pictures that are drawn here, what size pump did we put down in the hole and discharge? Okay, so that was downsized for the, water treatment plant up on the hill instead of, yeah, that, that well is definitely a large resource. Just, okay, thank you.
Oh, I don't have a question. I just wanted to compliment you and staff and everyone that puts this. This is another excellent operations report. I went through every page of it, and excuse me, there's a ton of information in there that's really valuable. So thank you again.
So all known water leaks are fixed now? Top of everything? Yeah, right. No, that's what I mean. No, yeah. Sure. That'll probably continue.
The county was good at trying to get things out of the way. There was a lot coordinated. It's much better right now than the past.
Good job, Eric, and pass that along to the crew. That's awesome. You guys all work together and went across department lines and you're done. So good job.
As if I may, there's a lot to report out on it. It just occurred to me that, you know, talking about the mutuals, that we did reach out to Twin Art CSD. They helped us out with pumping at the Twin Art, pumping the water from the. Did have their help. Yeah.
Okay. It's just a file items. Go ahead, Melissa. Oh, yeah, sorry. Any public comment? The ops report? Anything online, Corey? Okay. Go ahead.
Item number 5.
Well, I'm gonna test out our new audio visual system here. Make sure it shows up on the screen. It's been a while since we've updated you folks on ongoing regional wastewater treatment plant progress report here. So let me make sure you can see. The project started in October 2021. And so we're about 17 months in at this point. The original substantial or final completion, I should say, date was supposed to be October of this year. We're running about 5 months behind schedule. for a number of reasons. Clearly, the weather hasn't helped. There's some procurement issues, which is very common. You've heard a lot about that recently, and we'll go into a little more detail on that. It is going to rehash a little bit because it has been a while. It's a $42 million project, $35 million construction contract with Kiewit. Of that 42 million, we're at about 58% complete at this point. And we're about the same in terms of the duration of the project if you include the delay that we have now. So we're tracking pretty well close to budget. That doesn't mean that we'll necessarily finish the project on budget, but we are going to do everything we can in our power to be on budget, especially because rates and reserves cannot be a safety net for us on this project, especially one of this size. And we've had, recent communication about rates and we've spent a good deal of our reserves already on this project. So those are just important things to point out. I do want to let you know that Jennifer, who really should be the person giving you this report, it just so happens she's always at a meeting at the job site on Tuesday mornings at this very time. She is essentially full-time. We've pushed some of the other capital projects. This is one of 20 capital projects we have on this year's schedule. So we've tried to take some of her projects and shift those over to other staff people to really dedicate her time. So she's essentially full-time. We also have our inspector on site, which is a contract. Mountaineering Engineering is also there, sometimes more than full-time. He does have overtime from time to time. And then as well, PACE, Pacific Advanced Civil Engineering, our design engineer, they also are at least one staff member is full-time. In addition to that, we have support staff here on the operations side with Michelle and Eric and the treatment plant operators and Steve and his department in terms of processing payments. So got a lot of people involved in the project. I would say most agencies probably have more than just one person at the staff level dedicated to a project of this size. But Jennifer's extremely efficient with her time. And we're providing a lot of good value to the ratepayers on this project by trying to minimize what our overhead and soft costs and maximize the amount of dollars that go into actual construction. What you see up on your screen is the same format we've been giving you on all these progress reports. Essentially, when we started this process, you saw no stars at all. There was nothing going on. And now you can see clearly that almost every aspect of the site is being touched in some form, with the exception of the digesters. The digesters are the very last phase of the project. And we can't really work on the digesters until we get the other part of the plant operational and the solids dewatering process operational. So that will be at the end of the project. But most of what you would see if you were out on the job site now is a lot of the mechanical equipment has been recently installed. So the clarifier internals, the rake arms, the center cans, the filter, the baffles for the chlorine contact basin are going in very soon. The reuse pumps have been installed. The RAS and the WAS, these are pumps specific to the treatment process, have been installed. None of this has been started up yet. We are focused on getting all the equipment in, and then there is a specific startup and testing plan for each component in the treatment process. And so in some cases, the vendor will come out, like the vendor for the filter units will come out and in conjunction with the contractor, we'll go through a series of tests on the equipment, make sure it's operationally ready. And then the next step in the in the startup process is to make sure all of the PLCs, the actual brains and the computer programming, will operate that piece of equipment in conjunction with all the other pieces of equipment. Jennifer was in Sacramento yesterday at what they call a FAT test. It's a functional acceptance test at Tesco. Tesco is a big company, kind of an industry leader in PLC programming and integration and that kind of thing. You see them a lot of their panels at intersections because they actually operate the signals, and there's a PLC for that. Well, they also do water and wastewater plants, and they have been hired by Kiewit to do a lot of the integration and the programming on this in conjunction with our engineers. So they were up there yesterday, just basically making sure that the program that's written for this plant and the panel that was constructed by Tesco, the inputs and the outputs are all correctly wired. When you give an input signal, that you're returning an output signal that's correct and is scaled appropriately. All of this is done there at the factory so that they can make any changes before they bring it out and put the panel in service. And then everybody's scratching their head while they're trying to get pumps to run. So in this case, we've made tremendous progress. There's a roof on building A right here. This is the admin building. The framing inside is done. The plumbing, the electrical, the insulation, the drywall is nearly done. On this portion of the building, all the blowers are in, and that has been painted in the inside. Over here in 13, the generators were set just a couple weeks ago. We are still expecting in April to have PG&E power to the site. It's taken a really long time for that. And then down over here on building B, you can see as you drive down the highway that the walls are coming up, but there is no end walls and no roof on that building yet. So that's a pretty high priority so that they can work through the rain. But there is an electrical building here, and they did get a roof on that, and they're going to be a roof deck on that. And they're going to be looking to actually put the membrane roof on soon.
Our monitor is not changing as you're.
No, I'm trying to, I'm moving my mouse, and when I move it, it's got a lag. So I apologize. I don't see that.
And it's not very bright either.
Yeah.
The mouse.
Yeah.
We don't see.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I need to change the format. Yeah, sorry about that. I should probably do this in PowerPoint because then I could, anyway, I just did it right off the PDF. So I'll try to be careful when I'm using the pointer. Funding sources, as we talked about, we're about 58% of 42 million. The key thing here is that the grant component, the 8.5 million, is the very last part of the project. So we're really trying to shoot for a bullseye here. It's hard to do. You don't want to end up under budget because you've left grant money on the table, but you don't want to go over budget because you just don't have the funds to absorb cost overruns. So here you can see we've already used our portion, and we're almost 16 million in on the USDA loan. The project dashboard here really lays out the buckets of funding in the project budget here. One of the things I'd point your attention to is at the far right-hand side, we had $3.5 million contingency on a $35 million construction project, which is 10%. 10% is pretty low by industry standards on a design bid build project where you don't know exactly, especially in this current climate with inflation, you don't have all the unknowns really quantified before you go out to bid. And This has been something we've been watching very closely. We've executed 527,000 in change orders with Kiewit. And we're sitting at about 3 million left. But we anticipate that there will be quite a few more change orders just because the plan set, although it's 300 pages long, it just doesn't, it doesn't capture every little detail. And so on a daily basis, the contractor submits what they call a request for information. And it may be as simple as, hey, you know, your plans don't show where the grab bars are in the ADA portion of the bathroom. Where do you want them? And oh, how do you want them anchored to the tile wall? What's the framing detail like? How many pounds does that grab bar need to, you know, this is a very basic example, but we've had about 300 of those RFIs on this job. And each one of those is responded to. Sometimes it's a real quick response. Sometimes it takes several hours. So Jennifer works with the engineer and with Mountaineering Engineering to get those responses back. And we have specific timelines in order to get those back to the contractor so they're not delayed. But other than that, the other thing to note on this is under the engineering, there's just, you can see it's a little out of whack.
Go ahead and finish your sentence.
I was just going to say that, you know, we're expending our engineering budget quicker than the project is progressing. And so that's an area that we might need to tap into the contingency to pay for.
What's the environmental with the blue section?
Thank you.
Is
That's what I
is
want
that
to know.
part of our contingency?
Yeah, I think that we have, I think that the bar got messed up. And yeah, there's another part of this
Just
presentation. Yeah, no,
just a wild graphic.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We did expend most of our environmental on that already because we did the environmental at the beginning of the job. I will say though, there is a possibility, you know, that we're going to be looking for, you know, if there's lead-based paints in the digester, if there's any other hazardous materials in some of the sealants on the top of the roof dome for the digesters. And those were things that weren't contemplated when we went out to bid. And yet the contractor has to protect their staff. So they will be doing some testing on that. And depending on the containment and abatement, there may be some cost associated with that. That would come out of contingency because essentially we've spent the
Engineering bar, you'd mentioned that we should use contingency. Can you explain that a little?
with engineering and like a conventional design bid build, we hired Pace, and Pace prepared the plans and did the specifications. And they did that not in an entire vacuum, but they didn't consult a contractor. And engineers and contractors, the best product is when they work really closely together. So when we went out to bid for this project, as you recall, the bids came in quite a bit higher and the market was very unstable at the time. We had basically a $35 million contract, but originally the bids were 37 million. We had to take $2 million off of that in order to get the USDA funding. And USDA said, in addition, we want for our funding you to allocate, set aside this 10% of the 35 million, 3.5 million. The contingency can be spent for any number of things in the project. It doesn't have to be just for the construction. So it can deal with overruns on engineering or environmental or any of that. So we're not locked in. But typically you would see more contingency, more cushion, but because USDA was already stretched out, we're at the maximum grant they would give us. And we actually got the grant increased and we were at the maximum loan right at the $25 billion threshold. So there wasn't a lot of room for them to give us more money. And so we've been trying very hard to manage costs as they come through, not knowing what additional change orders may occur with the digesters. And so we're trying to keep that contingency as much as possible until we get toward the end of the job. And then we'll release that for whatever remaining work, maybe pavement or concrete work. Am I answering your question?
Yeah.
So you'll see that contingency shrink here. And ideally at the end of the job, Don gave us clearance to go a couple $100 over budget on this project. So we're going to be managing it pretty tight. Maybe we might be $200 over budget at the end. Hopefully.
This is Steve.
I'll go back.
You mentioned that we're to our reserves on this project.
Steve, so, and I'll go back a slide even before then. Question was about reserves.
Integral part. And when we were dealing with USDA, critical component to USDA, originally we were approved for a loan park grant, 20 million project. So we came back with a $40 million project. They said we could go up to the 25 million, but only if we provided as much reserves as possible. My anticipation was at least matching. So at that time, sewer, wastewater, and reserves over the years, and this is basically just about every bit of our reserve. So we committed almost $9 million to the reserves in order to get $8.5 million of grant. The way their grant's set up. So right now it says USDA loan, but really we had to get a construction loan. So that money's sitting in the bank. We use that for construction. Then when the plant's totally done and operational, USDA will pay off the construction loan, start paying them for the next 40 years. Low interest rate. Like Eric said, we have to spend that money first, and then the very bottom is the grant money. We'll spend that and get reimbursed.
A little bit redundant, just some fast facts about the project. See the 383 RFIs. Those are requests for information. Those are just details that the contractor needs because they need interpretation of the plans. The 3-month look ahead will complete the installation of the baffle walls and the mooring contact basin. There is still some underground electrical conduits and also the air lines that need to be done. But if you can imagine what the site looks like right now with all the rain, it's pretty muddy out there. So we'll need to wait until we dry out a little bit. And then getting that roof deck and eventually the membrane roof on top of building B will be a high priority so that then they can move in to work in all weather conditions inside there. Couple photos and we're getting toward the end here. This is an error here. It says installation of pumping. That should be piping. I don't know exactly where this is, but I think this might be in the restroom facility in building A. You can see also insulation being placed in the walls, HVAC, ducting is in. Also, this is the main hallway through the building A. There will be offices, 2 offices in there, 2 meeting rooms and a break room. There's a server room, electrical room, and far end is the blower room. And then behind us is going to be the maintenance. This is the electrical room as part of building B. The electrical and controls for the headworks and for the screw press for the dewatering system will all be here, and the chemical feed system. On the right, you'll see the building. So the bottom floor will be open so that a truck and trailer can pull through the building. And I recognize my mouse is my pointer, you can't see, but the truck could pull in from the right to the left into that building. And then on the on the second deck, there'll be this screw press, sludge dewatering system. The cake was what they call it after the water's been squeezed out, will drop into the trailer and be hauled off the site. Or in the future, it may be stockpiled on site so that it can dry a little bit more before we haul it off. This is the South Process Station. And some of the changes that occur through the RFI process is this stairway was going to be located off of the view here, and it had some conflicts, so we redesigned that to have the stairway come down here. On the right, you'll see some of the pumps, and here are the new generators that were craned into place just a couple weeks ago. And some of the painting. Then there's an overall. Been a little long-winded. Thanks for your patience. Usually we just gloss right through these, but we had a light meeting and it's been a while, so I thought it would be a good opportunity just to bring you guys up to speed. So happy to answer any questions.
So a week ago or so, I found this real interesting article on a septic processing, I guess you'd call it. And I gave it to Dawn, and with great disappointment, I heard this morning that we've already bought the septic equipment and so on. So I guess what my question now is, now that we're on the hook, I'm sure that the equipment that was ordered and purchased is really good. I hope it'll be as low maintenance as the one that I gave to Dawn, number one. And number two, that the new equipment will have a way to accurately track what's being dumped and by who, and also that we're going to have a excuse me, a way to charge a legitimate fee for that process.
I read that article this morning, and it was a little light on the details of the specific equipment, like lakeside manufacturing and whatnot. But I have pretty high level of confidence that this system will perform like that. They made it sound like the only maintenance they had was to clean the rock trap out. And this will have a rock trap, it will have ozone, and it will have a very robust screening system and grit removal system. It will have the ability to track who's coming and the load volume, and it will be automated. There'll be 2 unloading points for septage versus currently our haulers are back up the hill. And you can see my mouse or my pointer septage receiving section right here. The revenue article really highlighted the revenue potential, and I know we're going to revisit our septage rates. Question, I think we even talked about trying to do it before the project was done, but we are essentially a year out from the facility being ready. So it's a bit of a board decision if we want to raise those fees. They're not subject to Prop 218 is my understanding. But once we have this new system in place and we kind of quantify what the operating costs are, and we could even do some market research about how to set a rate so that it covers not only the cost to operate and replace the system, maintenance the system, but to maybe even help us with revenue for the plant as a whole.
So all that sounds good. I'm glad that you you folks have that on your radar and you're working on it. But how easy is it going to be to clean out that trap? Because as we all know, those trucks have God only knows what in them. You know, whatever went down the toilet and into the septic tank is going to end up down there at regional. And you know, I hope it's not going to be a maintenance problem and another problem for our employees to have to try and keep up with.
I do too. So the best person to answer that would be the design engineer Pace, and then the best person to answer that would be the operator after they've actually operated the system. But my understanding is that the rock trap also includes the ozone, and there's a lot of airflow, a lot of agitation there to keep some of, you know, things that are really heavy are going to sink, but other things to keep that fresh odor wise and to keep the debris moving to the headworks where it really should be removed. We want it removed at the headworks. We don't want to have our guys bring it back on truck out to the rock trap and clean it out that way. So hopefully it will function the way it's been designed. We'll know soon enough.
Okay, thank you.
I might just add that this topic, we were all discussing this with Record Boat Ride. Superintendent, this was a heavily discussed topic by us. We feel like we edited everything out we could possibly do to make sure that it isn't because what we have going on right now and have had for a while. Pretty confident we've designed something that's going to be far better than what we have had for a while. Pretty confident.
Okay, great.
Proof's in the pudding.
Along those lines, we will be receiving septage fire camps, events, the fire camp, I know, and campgrounds also. Elevators, correct? It's good that we err on the side of a design that can handle crazy stuff. Saying, I've worked those campgrounds. People ditch anything and everything in this porta potty. So, yeah.
I have a question. Eric, with equipment being installed right now and the timeline that we're running 5 months behind, is a contractor responsible for ensuring the proper maintenance of the installed equipment during that time frame before startup, or is there any consideration towards that?
So it's all in the contract. Currently, the way the contract reads is there's a substantial completion date and a final completion date, just one. And so the project's structured in 2 phases. Phase 1 is get the liquid process going, which means run through the headworks, into the aeration basins, into the clarifiers, through the filters, out of the chlorine contact basin. And then once that's operational and the solids dewatering, then come back. Phase 2 is to deal with the digesters. So to the extent that the plant is running through there, contractor may ask for what we call partial utilization, which means, hey, you're signing off and I'm giving you this portion of the facility because it's being utilized right now. Which in that, if we do agree to that, then yes, some of the maintenance then falls on us because we're the ones actually operating it. But currently the contract would have that the flow flows through that process and it's still the contractor's responsibility to maintain it. So there's going to be some discussions with operations about how comfortable we are actually using the facility. And we've already started that process, but the warranties all get transferred to the owner, to us upon whenever we accept that particular item. And so we'll be responsible to operate and maintain, and we'll have warranty coverage.
Yeah, I was question more towards a dry time, such as a pump being installed what would now be 10 months prior to use. Who's, is anybody monitoring the maintenance, such as rotating that pump or spinning it so bearings are not sitting in one spot?
That's all Kiewit's responsibility. And when they come to do their initial startup, they will be measuring, testing, all of that before, several times actually, before it even gets water flowing through it, and then before we would take it over, there's quite a startup and testing procedure that's Mountaineering Engineering's job, is to sign off on each of those and witness all those tests and to make sure we're not taking on a new piece of equipment that, the contractor has demobilized, left the site, and next week we have a problem. Not to say that, something of this complexity will have some issues, but we're doing everything we can to make sure we're not accepting something that's already defective on day one.
We're looking about a year.
That's correct. March of 2024 is what the final completion date, but we do think that we could be running water through the liquid side of the plant as early as August, maybe as late as November. So we may actually start having the discussion that you were just talking about is, hey, who's been maintaining all of these, because they need to be ready before the project's actually complete. But then the digester work and then hopefully paving and erosion control and fencing, all of those things would bleed over into next year.
Questions? Public comment? Okay, thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. Okay, staff reports.
Well, I don't have a lot to provide you. There hasn't been a recent Natural Resources Committee meeting that I've attended. Hasn't been a recent Water Policy Advisory Committee that's happened that I've attended. And I know the most recent LAFCO meeting canceled, so I haven't been to any of them. I'm sure everybody, TUD and all of our partnering, very busy with the storm. That's really the report there. I had something coming up. That's fine. That's my report.
Else?
So I did talk a little bit about the OES meetings. Emily and I have been working with the county on IDEs for the emergencies initial damage assessment estimate. So, and then those get turned into, after we get them all done, it'll get turned into FEMA. We have a phone call with FEMA today. We have a tour with FEMA on Friday with counties doing the same.
Eric, for clarity, we're talking about a new set of IDs.
Right.
We've already gone through a lot of this for this January storms. That event is one event.
Yes.
Have a new event, February, March storm
Yes.
that you're working on currently.
Yep. It's getting, there's a lot, so.
I got a question. So how many atmospheric rivers have had now?
12.
12 atmospheric.
Can stop.
Impressive.
Any idea what our total rainfall is?
The one that says 44, but to date here, the one at the yard, the weather station at the yard's 47. I did get to go to the Con Expo in Las Vegas, which it's an amazing show. It's all the new equipment, all the new stuff they're coming out with. I saw a lot of stuff I'd love just to be able to, really expensive. I did, there's a lot of new things to come out there, like battery operated equipment. that. So we did try and do some research on that. Basically, they said these are all prototypes. We have nothing to. So interesting to look at. Talk to the people. They're still learning themselves. A lot of really stuff.
Yeah, and I asked, knowing he was going, I asked him to look for and ask questions about hydrogen fuel. I know that's an up and coming technology. It just hasn't made it stateside just yet. So there's nothing at this expo.
There's nothing.
Right, and as far as battery operated bows and excavators and things of that nature, it's just out there a ways. Correct?
Yeah, it's out there. Like I said, they had prototypes sitting there, but had zero information. Anywhere else you went, if you wanted information, you had a little badge and they would scan your badge and we'll email you, which was nice. So you could move on. It was massive. How big is it? Cannot do it and can't tour the whole facility in 2 days, especially if you're looking at stuff. It's neat to go. Good for some of our crews to get out there. It's every 3 years. See what's out there, what's new. Technology. Very good.
Yeah, it's escaping my mind right now, the name of them, but where are you folks at with getting those small vehicles to?
UTVs,
Yeah.
we ordered one and we're hoping it's here before July. It was ordered, I believe, in November.
So is it going to have a trailer?
To tow?
Yeah.
Take it to a spot?
Well, I know you need one to get it out there, but then
We're
carry
gonna work
the-
on that down the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the suggestions that I gave to Doug, I gave him a whole list of things, and you may or may not have got it. You probably did, but I was hoping that this would be a situation where you'd look at all the ones that are needed, like re-examine the one down there, regional waste, and if you needed more than one, which I imagine you would for the ditch system, that they would all match, so that when the guys out in the shop go to purchase parts and materials, well, one, they're always working on the same vehicle. Everything's same. And then parts, like oil filters, air filter, whatever it takes, they're all the same. So you can buy them in quantity, and they're always working on the same thing.
Yeah, that's the idea going forward. When we thought we were gonna be able to get two, and after we got some quotes and then went out to get it, came in a lot more than with inflation.
Yeah.
And as we're going forward, we're gonna see how well this works, and then we need to start adding. Because this year we could have really used at least 3 to get other people fueling, getting people out on the ditch, finding water leaks.
Another thing that I suggested, of course, this is going to take work on the berms. The berms are going to have to be, built up some, because some of them have been allowed to erode away, and it's not wide enough for those to maneuver them. But one of the things I thought might be a good idea too is when you're setting these up, you set them up with a adjustable arm that would go out into the center of the ditch and keep our crews out of the ditch, and have a blade on it and have it move to break up the ice and snow. And then you could just pull it off during the summer when you don't need it and put it back on in winter. But just a thought.
That's all I-
Next.
So, not really sure what to report, or what to say. I do feel it important on to the board. Still extremely concerned. Especially though, ask me where we go from here. I think you've heard up to now, costs can escalate. Had two of the highest payrolls district, had weather, over pitches, whatever you call it. Right now, we should be working on the budget for next year. A little challenging. Try and figure out where we're at. So at that point, we're talking about a future meeting. Yes. It's the important tell you.
Steve?
Just real quick, I wanted to let the board know, we opened bids today for the Zone 4 tank replacement project. This has been going on for probably a year and a half or more now. So the board originally executed a purchase agreement. So we purchased the land from SPI. This is to replace the White Fur tank. And then I think we came to the board last fall with the CEQA. Board adopted the CEQA document. And Elizabeth Merchant Wells, our assistant engineer, has been working on the plans, and those are, have been circulated. We had last 2 weeks ago, we had a pre-bid meeting, took a bunch of contractors up to the job site. And so we're hopeful we get some good bids today. It is one of the larger projects on the capital schedule. And Steve mentioned budgeting because of the fiscal year ending kind of in the middle of construction season. Next year's budget will need to include some funds to complete the project. But we'll come back to the board at a future date requesting award of contract and execution of the contract with the low bidder.
How many bids you take in? Do you know yet?
Well, it's at 2 p.m. today. We've received 2 bids and we hope to receive maybe 2 more. I'm hopeful we'll get 3 or 4 bids.
Hey, everyone. Good morning. A couple of things I wanted to report. Actually, going back to the ops report that Eric presented, it was a great report and lots of information, a lot of different people that participate in that. And then Emily puts it together in a manner that looks nice and easy to follow, and hopefully it's informative as possible for you. But I wanted to draw your attention back to the last page. You don't have to pull it up, but you may have noticed that we did a couple of different trainings with PG&E. So PG&E has been a great partner for us. They have, in February, they presented a couple of different trainings at no cost to the district, one on electrical and gas safety, just what to do when you see a downline, who to call, what to do, and so that our employees are safe. And we saw that firsthand where we had, during these storms, December, January, where we had mainline breaks, we just couldn't get there because of the down power lines. So, and then in addition, PG&E put on an 811 call before you dig training. And so not only do we do that here for our staff to know when they need to call 811, but we also invite local contractors and other agencies within Tuolumne County so that they also are doing the right things around our utilities and other utilities, because we unfortunately numerous times throughout the year have a contractor hit a water line or a sewer line, and that costs us in resources and staff. Sometimes we recoup some of that cost by sending them a bill, but it's still just an inconvenience, and we have customers out of water or for longer periods of time than we would like. So we do offer that on a regular basis, and a lot of our local contractors take advantage of that. So that's really great. Also on that page, just want to acknowledge that Curtis Wainwright in our distribution department obtained his D2. So very proud of Curtis for that. And on the FEMA, the IDEs and the public assistance for the December, January storms, we did submit a request for public assistance on those. We're not quite there for the February, March storms yet, but FEMA actually will be here today for an exploratory meeting to go through the IDEs and just talk about the nuts and bolts of what the process is to continue with that funding. And then finally, I just wanted to acknowledge an employee, Tom Powell. He's a utility worker in distribution. We got a call from a customer on North Tuolumne Road, early March, who his meter, he had a break on his side of the meter that was spraying 6 feet in the air and had multiple feet of snow, and called out, and Tom helped him dig that meter out and help him identify where the leak was and everything. And then just wanted to share, I'm going to quote him because it was this customer just wanted to pass along to Tom's supervisor and his words, quote, how much of a quote godsend he was. And he also stated, quote, "You don't often find people that truly care about what they do anymore." And Tom clearly did. So also just wanted to let us know that he's a fine young man and was very impressed and appreciative of how hard he worked and to get him back in water as soon as possible. So thank you to Tom and the rest of the crews that have been working extremely hard for our customers. Report.
Staff reports. Director.
I've never seen so many meetings canceled as I've seen in the last couple of months. So I only have one thing that I ended, and that was on 3/15. Attended the T-Stan Irwin Water Advisory Committee and the JPA meetings, and we're making great progress on trying to figure out what's going to happen with the renovation of our website and the education. Public, if they want to see where all the money is gone that we brought into this area, and which, by the way, is, I believe, right around 30 million, is taking care of a lot of projects that our ratepayers and our constituents, the people that live both in the southern part of Calaveras County as well as Tuolumne County, could never have afforded. So anyway, it's all positive. Thank you. Yeah, the chairman. Thank you. Thank you.
David, you got anything?
No reports at this time.
Yeah, I don't. That's everything on the agenda. Does anybody have any?